Hi, I'm Alex. This is Pucksandpaperbacks, where I love to shout about queer and trans books. Welcome to another episode of TBR Tackle. This is my series where I tackle 2 books off of my physical TBR with a twist. Today's episode was supposed to be for October, which is why I will be reading some horror, thriller, and mystery books off of my TBR. I put some titles of books that I own in those genres into a spinner wheel, and I'm going to spin to decide which 2 books I'll be reading for this episode of TBR Tackle. This is episode 6, so if you want to catch up, I will share the playlist above. Let's get started. Let's pick my TBR. I have my spinner wheel up. I'm going to spin it twice to pick each book. I hope I get a book for a challenge. I believe one of the books on my These Books Will Self-Destruct in 12 Months list is on this list. Honestly, I don't have too much from horror and thriller on my physical TBR, so it's not a long list. I'll just read you my options really quick. I have Your Lonely Nights Are Over by A.J. Sass, To Catch a Killer by Cheryl Scarborough, Lost in the Neverwoods by Aidan Thomas, I Killed Zoe Spanos by Kit Frick, The Many Half-Lived Lives of Sam Sylvester, Winter Counts, The Honeys by Ryan LaSala, and Where Echoes Die by Courtney Gold. Like I said, not too many options, but this is a good stack. So without further ado, let's spin the wheel. To Catch a Killer by Cheryl Scarborough. This is really interesting. I have had this book for years, maybe 2017. I remember I was in college and I bought this book because it was the time where this trend was popular in food content, where people would order what the person behind them ordered. So I wanted to make it bookish. It never happened. I don't even think I have the footage anymore. I wanted to do it with book orders, and so I ended up getting The Girl on the Train, that popular book, and this. So now I'm finally reading it. I was actually going to unhaul it because obviously I'm not going to do that video, but now it works because I can fit it into this video. So I'll be reading it. I'll let you know what it's about in a second, but I have to pick the next book. Winter Counts. This is my friend Michelle at Thor Wants Another Letter's favorite book. I'm so excited that I got this because I wanted to incorporate some Indigenous horror into my reading this month. Before filming this, I didn't have any Indigenous horror or just Indigenous books on my TBR for this month, so I'm really excited to read this. I have to pick up the audiobook because I don't know how I'm gonna do physically, but I do have the physical copy. I thrifted it from a bookstore in Philly, and this is really exciting. I actually bought both of these books in Philly, so that's really interesting. Let me go grab the books, I'll let you know what they're about, and then I'll start reading. Here are the books that I'll be reading. To Catch a Killer by Cheryl Scarborough. I believe this is YA. It's published by Tor Teen, and there's a blurb calling it a twisty cold case mystery custom made for fans of Sarah Shepard, the author of Pretty Little Liars. Okay. Not really selling me. Let's read what it's about. Erin Blake has one of those names, instantly recognizable, a name inextricably linked to a grisly crime. As a toddler, Erin survived for 3 days alongside the corpse of her murdered mother. The case, which remains unsolved, fascinated a nation. 14 years later, Erin has become a relatively normal teen in spite of the looming questions about her past. But then she discovers the body of her biology teacher and once again finds herself at the center of a brutal homicide investigation. When questioned by the police, Erin tells almost the whole truth, but never voices her suspicions that her mother's killer has struck again. This sounds good. I am not the biggest fan of thrillers because I find that I haven't found too many that are my absolute favorites. When I read thrillers, sometimes I find if I'm not hooked by the first chapter, it takes me a while to care about the mystery. I will say one of my favorite thrillers is No Exit by Taylor Adams. I think it's one of the best. But my problem with thrillers is I just find that I get so invested and then the return is not what I wanted. I can't get into Ruth Ware. I've tried it so many times. I read her one book that has like rain on the cover or something like that. I believe it's set on like a ship or something. I'll put the cover here, but that one I didn't like either. So I hope that I like this, but it's fine because I can just unhaul it if I don't. But I do feel I'm going to enjoy this. This is Winter Counts by David Haska Winley-Wyden, and this is a book that I've actually started, but I put down because there was a triggering scene that I just wasn't in the headspace for. So I think this is a perfect time to pick it up again. It's actually not too long. I have read many Indigenous thrillers. I don't know what genre this actually is. It's crime fiction. Okay. I've read many Indigenous crime fiction that I really enjoy. Nick Bedina is one of my favorites. I also love Stephen Graham Jones. His horror books are really good. I'm really excited to pick this up again. Like I said, it is Michelle's favorite book, and I hope that I enjoy it as much as she does. Let's read what it's about. Virgil Wounded Horse is the local enforcer on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. When justice is denied by the American legal system or the tribal council, Virgil is hired to deliver his own punishment, the kind that's hard to forget. But when heroin makes its way onto the reservation and finds Virgil's nephew, his vigilantism suddenly becomes personal. He enlists the help of his ex-girlfriend and sets out to learn where the drugs are coming from and how to make them stop. They follow a lead to Denver and find that drug cartels are rapidly expanding and forming new and terrifying alliances. And back on the reservation, a new tribal council initiative raises uncomfortable questions about money and power. As Virgil starts to link the pieces together, he must face his own demons and reclaim his native identity. He realizes that being a Native American in the 21st century, Winter Counts as a tour de force of crime fiction, a bracingly honest look at a long ignored part of American life, and a twisting, turning story that's as deeply rendered as it is thrilling. Wow, that sounds so good. I'm excited for this episode of TBR Tackle. Let's get reading. Hi, since we last spoke, I have been reading Winter Counts and it's so good, but it is intense and heavy. I knew that because that's why I DNF'd it originally, and I'm just taking my time with it. I really love it and I want to keep reading it. I'm so happy I'm enjoying this. I just have to take my time with it because it is very heavy. Luckily, I am reading something a little bit lighter on the side, but I am so happy that I'm enjoying this. We're following Virgil Wounded Horse. His nephew Nathan has overdosed on heroin and he's trying to figure out who did it because he wants to kick their ass. I just love Indigenous crime fiction. I believe I've already said that in this video, and if not, let me say it again because it is just so good, and that's why I'm loving this. It's the pacing, it's just the storytelling and the characters. However, my one gripe is I don't like romance in a mystery book. I don't need it. And I see that that's happening here, and that's fine. It's a double-edged sword because I'm like, I like that. I like that we have some romance where an Indigenous man is finding love. Sweet. I just want the mystery part. Like, I don't need romance in my crime fiction. I'm very picky when it comes to mystery books, so just know that as you're watching this video. Just want the mystery and some of the other like character development parts. At this moment, I am 38% in. I am going to read more of the audiobook today because I have a lot of chores to do. If you haven't been catching up with my videos, I am doing a challenge called 75 Booked. I have been sharing it through short form content. Basically, it's a bookish challenge for 75 days to help you incorporate reading back into your life. My goals are to read for an hour each day, split into 30-minute intervals, 30 minutes sitting down, reading physically, and 30 minutes moving my body in some way. So I've been listening to the audiobook of Winter Counts as I complete that goal. Last night I finished Winter Counts and I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad I finally got around to this. If you like Indigenous crime fiction, I think you'll enjoy this, but I will share the content warnings down below because it's a heavy book. It was my fault for finishing this before I went to bed because I ended up having a nightmare. The ending is really intense, but I like the way that this was done. I like a storyline following somebody that's trying to uncover the mystery happening in their town. That's very common in Indigenous crime fiction, mystery thrillers. Think Angeline Bully, One of my favorites is Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. The only problem here is it was too graphic for me, and that's just my personal preference. I can't handle graphic things anymore as I get older, and my anxiety gets worse. When I go to sleep, it screws up my mind. But I would still recommend this. I really enjoy it. I will link Michelle's review down below. I'm sure she has a couple videos where she's referenced it just to have some perspective from somebody that's not me, especially since this is Michelle's favorite book. We follow Virgil Wounded Horse, whose nephew gets into drugs. He overdoses, and Virgil is like, I am going to hunt down the person that did this, and they are going to pay. The whole book, you're pretty much trying to find out who is behind this. There's a lot of social commentary about the opioid epidemic on reservations and how they target vulnerable people like teenagers. I really liked Virgil as a character. He was fun to read. He is just very gritty and he sees through people's bullshit. He knows that there are people who are naive and he just cares for his nephew so much. He's Lakota, and it talks a lot about Lakota traditions, how they talk to the creator, and just a lot of their spiritual traditions. So I really enjoyed this. I'm glad that I finally read it. I hope that David writes more because he's a great storyteller. His characters are great, and I'm excited to see what he has next. It's November 12th. I've been reading To Catch a Killer, and I wanted to share some of my initial thoughts. I am not a huge fan of this. I'm intrigued by the plot, and it's a fast read. It is capturing my attention. However, I don't like the way it's written, and I don't like the execution. I read a lot of YA, and I have read some YA thrillers. I have my favorites, but I just don't like the way that this is executed or written. This did come out in 2017, but I don't think that's an excuse. I don't like the mention of a shrink for therapy. I don't like that we have a character named Spam and don't know why that's what her name is. I would think the author would tell us when we met the character why that's her name, but we don't get any explanation. Now, I am only 65 pages in, so I could find out later, but I don't really want to find out in the midpoint why that's what the character's name is, because this character has shown up a lot. Like I said, the plot is really intriguing. We're following Erin, whose mother was murdered and they never found the killer. Now, she wants to figure out who her father is, so she enlists the help of her teacher, Miss P, who has experience in forensics. When Erin shows up at Miss P's house to give her some evidence, she finds her body. She's dead. So now there's a whole investigation trying to figure out what happened, and of course they think Erin did it. Especially because of some things that Erin is tied to. There was a bloody towel that she left in the mailbox. We do find out the history behind that towel, but now we are thrown into this investigation of who murdered Miss P. I'm really interested to see how that progresses and if we do find a solution. I will say it is a fast-paced read. It is grabbing my attention, but besides that and the intriguing plot, I don't care for this book at all. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm reading a YA or because this story is so tied to the school and one of the teachers, but it's reminding me of the DCOM Get a Clue with Lindsay Lohan. Literally one of my favorite DCOMs, and I really want to rewatch it now. Maybe when I'm finished reading this, I will watch that, but it's just giving me those vibes. Now, I don't use Goodreads anymore, but because this came out in 2017, I wanted to see what the reviews were like, so I did head over and read some reviews. It was pretty mixed. There were some 5 stars, some 2 stars, some 1 stars, and even lower than that. So there was a lot of mixed feelings on this book. This is a poorly written and executed book. Those are my honest thoughts. Hopefully it'll change. I don't think so, but I will come back at the 50% mark and or if I choose to DNF it. I come bearing some bad news. I'm going to DNF To Catch a Killer. I read to 100 pages and I genuinely can't continue in this book. I hate the writing. I just hate the way that it's structured. I'm glad that I at least started it so I knew what I had. This is basically a TBR veteran, so I'm glad that I gave it a chance, but it is not for me. There are definitely better YA thrillers that I've read, so if you are looking for a YA thriller, I highly recommend 5 Survive by Holly Jackson, the author of Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I'll also pop some other titles here on the screen. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but 5 Survive was really good and I enjoyed it. I had planned to just read to 100 pages and DNF it, but one line that solidified me DNFing it was when she mentioned the character Spam, who we still don't know why that's her name, and it says that she loves drama and her dream job is to work for TMZ. I don't know, this just feels like somebody who has never been around teenagers before, because I just don't think that that is something that a teenager would say. I could be wrong, but it just put me off. So I am very glad that I'm DNFing this and I don't have to deal with it ever again.
And that does it for TBR Tackle episode 6. This is my last episode of the year. I will be resuming in January. I've had a lot of fun making this series, so I can't wait to start again in 2026. Here's a quick reading wrap up. I read Winter Counts by David Heska Weinbley-Wyden and really enjoyed it. The audiobook was great as well. It was narrated by Daryl Dennis. And I read to 100 pages of To Catch a Killer and ultimately DNF'd it. That's everything I read for episode 6 of TBR Tackle. If you would like to catch up on the series, I will link a playlist up above. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and leave a comment. You can just leave a book emoji. Thank you to my top members on Patreon and Bindry for their continuous support this month. I really appreciate it. I'm doing a deal on Patreon right now. If you use code HOLIDAY, you get 60% off of my highest tier, the Bookish Bundle. If you've ever wanted a personalized book recommendation from me, I'll be doing them in December, so that's why I did this little deal. If you ever wanted to join my Patreon, now is the best time. And until December 2nd, I have a deal for my top 2 tiers, the Paperback Pal and the Bookish Bundle, that you can use code PAPERBACK50 to get 50% off your first month. I would love to have you over there. It is the best way to support me, and I will be launching some new things in 2026. If you would like to watch more, I'll link my past TBR Tackle video here, and you can subscribe there